Good afternoon. My name is Steven Zacharias, and I am a museum educator here at the Rockpile Museum. I want to welcome you all here today and say thank you for joining us for this special edition of our Black and Yellow Theater, Voices of the Powder River Basin, from Yellowstone to the Black Hills. We try since the middle of June this year to provide audiences with an human interactive experience in our exhibits. Today is a very special presentation as we say goodbye to our exhibit, Dear Folks, Letters Home from World War II. This exhibit does not just happen just with the museum staff putting it all together. There are numerous people in the community who contributed stories, letters, pictures from their family's experience in World War II. And they truly are the heroes of this exhibit, are the ones that enabled us to put on such a fine exhibit like this. And we wanted to send it out in the right way. And so we're using our Black and Yellow Theater today to conclude that experience. So thank you to everybody who contributed. And without further ado, we'll get started.
Representatives, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked.
Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, America officially entered into the Second Great War, more commonly referred to today as World War II. Between December of 1941 and April of 1945, nearly 700 servicemen and women would leave their homes in Campbell County, Wyoming, to answer their nation's call to defend the United States of America. Campbell County's total population was just over 6,000 souls at the time. Almost 10% of Campbell County residents enlisted in the United States Armed Forces and would see their service take them to various places stateside and eventually onto the Atlantic or Pacific, or in sometimes even both.
December 1941. Dearest folks, well, I guess we will finally see some action. It took a long time, but it finally broke. It looks like I left Hawaii just in time, doesn't it? They must have really taken a beating. For all the reports I have heard, everybody that I have talked to seemed mighty happy about the whole thing, so I guess you can't beat that kind of feeling. Lots of love, Junior. Junior Lewis Jack Bennett. 20 June 1944. Dear folks, I am okay, although a little tired and dirty. We haven't had our clothes off since the 2nd of June, and I've only had my shoes off twice in that time, and that was to wash my feet and change socks. Maybe after we get this business finished up here, we'll get a little rest. We started getting our mail the 16th. I had new letters in a paper the next. Didn't have any mail yesterday, so maybe it will come today. It has been 14 days now since we landed in France, so guess we can say a little about it now, although you probably know more about it than I do. We came on the beach on the east side, and our particular outfit was attached to the 4th Division, so you can fully tell by the papers which direction we were headed. There was a little artillery fire along the beach as we came in. We had to wash ashore from about 300 yards out. So spent a very bad night the first night with everything all wet. We did lots of walking the first part of it, so it wasn't so bad. Love, Bud, Alan J. Sutherland.
In April of this year, this exhibit, Dear Folks, Letters Home from World War II, officially opened to the public here at the Campbell County Rockpile Museum. Featured in this exhibit are 8 men with ties to Campbell County. soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. A cross-section of the nearly 700 servicemen and women from Campbell County who served. The guests, like yourselves, who have been able to explore this room since April, have had an opportunity to hear and read the letters these men wrote to their friends, families, and loved ones back here at home. But who were these men? Lieutenant Colonel Chaplain Reverend Maurice Powers, United States Army, 1943 to 1944. He was known to his troops as the Fightin' Padre. Lieutenant Colonel Powers served as chaplain in the 12th Armored Division, 101st Mechanized Regiment, 36th Infantry Division, 7th Army in Europe and the Pacific. Lieutenant Colonel Powers would be stationed all throughout Europe during his service. His meritorious service would see him receive the Silver Star, Bronze Star with 3 clusters, 5 battle stars, and a unit citation. Following the end of World War II, Reverend Powers would spend 2 years in Berlin with United States occupation forces. While Reverend Powers never resided in Campbell County, he did visit his family members here as often as he could. He was the brother to Campbell County homesteader Genevieve Powers Rohan, and following their time in Iowa, his mother and several siblings eventually ended up here in Campbell County as well. Chief Photographer's Mate Junior Lewis Jack Bennick, United States Navy, 1939 to 1945. He graduated early from Campbell County High School in December of 1939 so that he could join the Navy. He served in the Pacific Theater, and on 15 September 1942, he survived the sinking of the USS Wasp. Jack specialized in aerial reconnaissance photography and would finish his naval career working on high-speed cameras used on aircraft. Following the war, he would return to Gillette, where he had a long career at Stockman's Bank, marry the love of his life, and raise a family. Technical Sergeant Herman H. Bill Hackett, United States Army, 1942 to 1945. Enlisted as a member of the United States Army Air Corps, he served with the 41st Photographic Reconnaissance Squadron as an airplane maintenance technician. He served in Panama and the Pacific Theater. After an honorable discharge in 1945, he would return to Campbell County. During his lifetime outside of the Army, he worked for the Civilian Conservation Corps, was a building contractor, worked for the Underwood Lumber Company here in Gillette, and would eventually retire from his work with the United States Postal Service. He was a life member of the American Legion Post 42, where he was a member of the drill team and honor guard. He passed away here in Gillette in 1998, at the time survived by his wife and daughter. Second Lieutenant Philip J. Kentz, United States Army, 1942 to 1945. Enlisting in the United States Army in 1942, Second Lieutenant Kentz served with the 124th Cavalry F Troop, nicknamed the Mars Men, for their participation in the Mars Task Force that operated in the China-Burma India theater. Second Lieutenant Kentz was awarded a Field Commission, along with a Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, and Asiatic Pacific Theater medals. After his honorable discharge, he would return to life in Wyoming, ranching and working for the oil companies. He would marry his wife Florence in 1946, and they would later purchase a ranch at Moorcroft, Wyoming, where they raised their 2 children. Staff Sergeant Alan J. Bud Sutherland, United States Army, 1942 to 1944. Born and raised here in Gillette, he would graduate from Campbell County High School in 1927. He worked for the Campbell County Supply Store during both high school and following his graduation. He enlisted in the United States Army in March of 1942. His training would take him to camps in Texas, California, and Louisiana, before heading to the beaches of Europe, where he was a part of Company C, 359th Infantry Regiment, 90th Infantry Division, part of the Allied invasion forces on D-Day. At the age of 36, Staff Sergeant Alan J. Bud Sutherland made the ultimate sacrifice in Normandy, France on 3 July 1944. Corporal Frank Butler, United States Army, 1942 to 1946. He enlisted in the United States Army in May of 1942, serving with the 680th Bomb Squadron of the United States Army Air Corps. He was charged with inspecting, repairing, and maintaining all the airplane armaments. He would serve for 7 months in the Pacific Theater. After his honorable discharge in January of 1946, he returned to his family here in Campbell County, Wyoming. Fire Controlman Robert Pat McCreary, United States Navy, 1943 to 1945. After first serving in the United States Marine Corps, F.C. McCreary enlisted in the United States Navy in 1943, where he specialized as a rangefinder operator. His job was to identify targets, estimate the speed and course of said target, and control the shot that was taken on that target. He would serve on the USS Lander and the USS Irwin in the Pacific Theater. Aside from his service in the United States Marine Corps and the United States Navy, F.C. McCreary would also serve in the Wyoming National Guard from 1931 to 1935, and again from 1957 to 1974. He would be called to active duty during the Berlin Crisis of 1961 to 1962. He was a longtime fixture in Campbell County and Gillette, serving his community and raising his family here. He loved the water and swimming, and he taught each of his children to swim in the ranch reservoirs. He loved history and traveling to visit battlefields and historic places of interest, including going to the Delaware River at 1 a.m. on a cold January night just to see what it would have been like to cross the river with horses in a boat. He was a gifted speaker and melded his love of history with his storytelling. He is remembered for his quick wit and storytelling that often included many jokes. Second Lieutenant Ira Ike Schober, United States Army, 1942 to 1945. He enlisted in the United States Army Air Corps the day after Pearl Harbor was attacked. He trained on B-24 Liberators as a bomber pilot and served in the Atlantic and Mediterranean theaters. On 10 August 1944, he flew his 49th mission. While on this mission, his plane was shot down over Yugoslavia, which resulted in his eventual capture by German forces. Second Lieutenant Schober would spend the next 9 months at various German prisoner of war camps before finally being liberated by Allied forces on 5 May of 1945. Upon his honorable discharge, Mr. Schober would return to the family ranch here in Campbell County. He would marry his wife in 1948, and in 1964, they would give up the ranch and move into town here in Gillette to start Schober & Sons, a family excavation contracting business. Mr. Schober would retire in 1984, but not for long, as he quickly went back to work for his son-in-law Larry. Many people remember Mr. Schober driving his truck throughout the community and delivering parts for Larry's Inc. until he finally retired for the last time in 1998. Mr. Schober truly enjoyed spending time with his family. He also enjoyed fishing and big game hunting, reading American history, woodworking by making birdhouses and furniture for his children and grandchildren, and walking his little dog, Scotty. More than anything, Ike loved being with family and friends. On this, the closing day of Dear Folks, Letters Home from World War II, I want to encourage you to please take the time to soak in all this exhibit has to offer. Spend some time reading the letters that are found within the exhibit for yourself. Many of them are located here to my right in the post office boxes. Campbell County men and women sacrificed on the front lines and here on the home front. Families grew victory gardens, ran scrap metal drives, held bond rallies, and most importantly, sent letters to encourage those soldiers, sailors, and Marines we honor today. Despite the fact that those letters were more often than not being censored by military personnel and post office workers in order to protect sensitive information being leaked to quote-unquote enemy aliens.
Date unknown, 1943. I can't write a thing. The censor is to blame. I'll just say I'm well and then sign my name. Can't tell where I sailed from. Can't even number the meals I ate. Can't inform you if met by a band. Can't mention the weather. Can't say if there is rain. All military secrets must secrets remain. Can't have a flashlight to guide me at night. Can't smoke a cigarette except out of sight. Can't keep a diary, for such is a sin. I can't keep the envelopes your letters come in. Can't say for sure, folks, just what I can write. So I'll can this letter and say a good night. Darrow A. Butcher.
In 1944 and 1945, the local business and professional women's club opened the Campbell County Canteen to feed the servicemen and women who passed through Gillette. The canteen was housed in a building near the railroad depot. Many community organizations, clubs, and churches combined their efforts in order to make the Campbell County Canteen a successful venture. Be sure that you make plans to return to the Campbell County Rockpile Museum in the spring of 2020 as we pay honor to the women of World War II who served in various ways from right here in Campbell County. In 1979, 40 years ago, the United States Congress and President passed a resolution to authorize National POW MIA Recognition Day. And then, in 1986, that resolution was changed by the Congress and President to be observed annually on the third Friday of September as a day for Americans to pause and remember the sacrifices and service of those who were prisoners of war, as well as all those who are still missing in action and their families. It is one of 6 calendar days where the National League of Families POW MIA flag is flown across the nation just below the Stars and Stripes. As yesterday was National POW MIA Recognition Day, we want to say we stand with all POW MIA families, and you and your loved ones' sacrifices are never forgotten. During World War II, some Campbell County servicemen would be captured and serve time in prisoner of war camps throughout the Pacific and European theaters. Some, like Second Lieutenant Ira Ike Schober, would be liberated and return home to Campbell County. Unfortunately, others did not, like Seaman Second Class George Spud R. Isley, who would go missing in action only to later be declared dead while missing at sea, never to be recovered to this day. Seaman Isley was posthumously awarded the Navy Cross for courageously refusing to abandon his gun in the face of an onrushing Japanese torpedo plane. And in 1943, the United States Navy christened an Everts-class short-haul destroyer escort, the USS Isley, in honor and remembrance of this Campbell County sailor. People of every background, race, and religion would serve from Campbell County during World War II. Brothers like Leonard Harris and Jerry Lynn from Recluse, Wyoming, would go off to serve their country. Family members often would hang in their windows A small red and white flag containing a blue star for every service member serving from that particular household. Known as the Blue Star flag, this tradition had begun during the Great War in 1917. Sadly, in some instances, those blue stars would be covered over with a gold one. The gold star would indicate that someone from that household had made the ultimate sacrifice and would not be returning home to their loved ones. The first gold star to appear in Campbell County during World War II would come on the 2nd of February 1942, when merchant seaman radio operator Francis Irvin Siltz was lost at sea when his ship SSWL Steed was torpedoed off the coast of New Jersey by German submarine U-103. Before we finish today, we would like to pay tribute to all the Gold Star families of Campbell County, as we are grateful for the sacrifices that their entire families have made. Our hearts go out to each and every one of you. As we close, let us take time to remember the World War II Campbell County Honor Roll. Those blue stars forever turned gold. Technical Sergeant Robert B. Birdsall, United States Army Air Corps. Technician, 5th grade, Darrow A. Butcher, United States Army. Private, 1st Class, Alvin Pink C. Christensen, United States Army. Petty Officer, 2nd Class, Howard E. Davis, United States Navy. Seaman, 2nd Class, George Spud R. Isley, United States Navy.
The President of the United States of America takes pride in presenting the Navy Cross posthumously to Seaman, 2nd Class, George Raymond Isley, United States Navy, for extraordinary heroism and devotion to duty in action against the enemy while serving as a gunner aboard the heavy cruiser USS San Francisco, CA-38. During an engagement with Japanese naval forces near Savo Island in the Solomons on the night of and on November 12 and 13, 1942, courageously refusing to abandon his gun in the face of an onrushing Japanese torpedo plane, Seaman 2nd Class Isley, with cool determination and utter disregard for his own personal safety, kept blazing away until the hostile craft plunged out of the sky in a flaming dive and crashed on his station. His grim perseverance and relentless devotion to duty in the face of certain death were in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. He gallantly gave up his own life in the defense of his country.
Private, 1st Class, George G. Gage, United States Army. Private, Frank R. Gilbert, United States Army. Private, 1st Class, Everett W. Gilkinson, United States Army. Private, 1st Class, Jimmy G. Goodman, United States Army. Private, Robert P. Harlow, United States Army. Aviation Machinist Mate, 2nd Class, Garland W. Hatfield, U.S. Navy. Private, 1st Class, Leonard J. Harris, United States Army. Private, 1st Class, John P. Hegarty, United States Army.
The President of the United States takes pride in presenting the Distinguished Service Cross posthumously to John P. Hegarty, 367-17452, Private 1st Class, U.S. Army, for extraordinary heroism in connection with military operations against an armed enemy while serving with Company G, 123rd Infantry Regiment, 33rd Infantry Division, in action against enemy forces on 17 March 1945. Private First Class Haggerty's intrepid actions, personal bravery, and zealous devotion to duty at the cost of his life, exemplifying the highest traditions of the military forces of the United States, and reflect great credit upon himself, the 33rd Infantry Division, and the United States Army. Headquarters, U.S. Forces, Pacific, General Orders Number 107, 1945.
Technical Sergeant Owen G. Hendricks, United States Army. First Lieutenant Peter V. Henningsen, United States Army Air Corps. Private First Class Eugene Gene D. Howell, United States Marine Corps. Private First Class Cale E. Judd, United States Army. Private First Class Kenneth C. Lindsay, United States Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant Howard Jerry W. Lind, United States Army. Major William Bill C. Morrow, United States Army. Captain Lloyd G. Murphy, United States Army. Fireman First Class Forrest M. Putnam, United States Navy. Petty Officer Enos L. Roberts, United States Navy. Sergeant Thomas Wayne Rodman, United States Army. Second Lieutenant George W. Rowe, United States Army Air Corps. Merchant Seaman Radio Operator Francis E. Siltz, Merchant Marines. Staff Sergeant Earl Stoop Stouffer Jr., United States Army. Private First Class Darrell A. Studi, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Alan Bud J. Sutherland, United States Army. Seaman Second Class Thomas A. Wolf, United States Navy. I want to take time to thank you all for participating in today's programming and for coming out to help us send off this wonderful exhibit, Dear Folks, Letters Home from World War II. I encourage you to spend some time looking through this exhibit, and please make plans to return next spring when we have a similar exhibit paying tribute to the women of World War II. I'm Stephen Zacharias. Thank you all very much.